Hello everyone, Attack Power here with another Steel Division 2 deck building video with 29th Tank Corps. So, another old-ish school Soviet division here. This division, I actually really used to like this division. I don't know why the memory really sticks with me. This is one of the divisions in the early game that I really enjoy playing. Now, I'm almost 100% sure this is not an OG, like, base game division, but it's been around a long time. And the parallels I draw to it are a little bit like second guard tank, but with a bunch of upgrades that to me make it a lot more fun to play. I actually think it sits pretty well. It's got a lot of tools. I don't think it is a balanced deck. I obviously, like I always do, I have tried it many times, but the lack of really strong support assets in terms of not a great RD tab, not a great support tab, not a great air tab, all of those not a greats kind of take the ability away to play a super long balance game. But I will say this one's definitely a lot closer than some of the more recent Soviet divisions we've looked at in 19th Tank Corps and stuff, where those are just absolutely unplayable balance. You could probably squeak by with this one, but I do think it just functions better as a Maverick deck. So let's dive in here. Recon tab, really good. It's a really solid recon tab. We get Razvedka. Love Razvedka. Love having some bazookas around. We have an A and B phase card of those. Su-57, which is still a really potent weapon. For 30 points, you get, a 6-pounder AT gun, which is really solid. It doesn't get the APCR, but instead it gets HE. Honestly, I prefer the HE. It's not very often that your APCR on this thing specifically is going to pick up many kills on a tank or something. But yeah, this is just a very good unit. It does a lot of things relatively fast. It gets the very high optics, which is nice to have anyway. Can definitely uptrade to panzers and stuff really well. It's a great little unit. I have a hard time ever passing it. You get a random Emcha Razvedka here. There really are no other Emchas in the deck. You just get this one random card of Emcha Razvedkas, which is really nice. Who doesn't want that? So this is our A-phase medium tank here. Does the recon and radio thing. Yeah, a great unit. Things are not taking the usual motorcycle. You could take the dozer instead of one of the Razvedka, if you want like a quote-unquote non-fighting recon unit. But again, my argument ended up just being, why don't I just bring a fighting recon unit and don't have it fight? ... Multi Razvedka, still don't like them. Another card Razvedka, if I could find 2 points, I totally would, because I love having these things all over the place to ruin someone's day with some bazooka fun. So yeah, great recon tab here. Not like a absurd number of options, but honestly, it hits all the check boxes. Good recon infantry with an AT unit weapon, some sort of armor car, a tank. It's basically got it all, except a sniper. You don't get snipers. Infantry tab. There is nothing special here outside of the somewhat unique build of this infantry tab for a tank division in the Soviets. So most of the time, tank divisions for the Soviets in this game only get one card of Gavardia DP, but this division is unique that it gets 2 Gavardia DP squads instead of the usual one, which is a really nice change and actually gives you a lot more strength in the infantry tab overall. It's the only thing it's one of the things that makes me, willing to try this on balance, not to say that this is completely unplayable balance, because honestly, I would take that Gavardia DP card in A, I would flip it over to C, and then you'd have lots of Gavardia DP. So that is definitely a very real option if you're going for balanced. But what we have here is Gavardia DP in A. We have the Strelky SVT in the M2A1s, some Tanko Desaniki also in the M2A1s. Does make this A-phase infantry quite expensive, but the half tracks are honestly most effective here in A phase before the opponent really deploys a lot of light anti-tank armaments. So at the beginning of the game, when these are the most effective, that's when I'm bringing them in. Also, if you can't really, it's hard to put the M2A1s in B phase because they still are limited in availability. There's 9 left if you build it this way. If you go down to 6 Tankos, I guess there would be what? We have 6, 15, 18. So you would have enough to get like a 12-man card of M2A1s in B phase. That's definitely an option, I suppose. But at the same time, you probably just have some Tankos left over for B phase. You can just use them then. But yeah, the M2A1 its most effective time is towards the beginning. Not to say it's not useful at other times in the game, but, to get the most crap your opponent has to call in more stuff to deal with this moment, A phase is the place to be. And of course, the Tenko Desniki card, I am doing it unvetted. So these, from way back, I've always unvetted these. I just find them to be a very strong unit overall. They really do hit hard, and having more of them always feels better than having less. A lot better, I should say. A lot better than having less. So, yeah. Also, I want more M2A1s. B phase, we are taking some Avtos. Good old Avto Machiki. Some Sappity. And there's the second Strelky DP card. And finally, C phase, just a Strelky card to try to finish up the game. Get a little bit... the nice thing about having... The thing with Maverick, your C phase is obviously really low income-wise. So the most effective thing to do is to bring in a cheaper infantry, right? You really don't want Panzergrens or some other high-cost infantry in C phase, because now you are very limited in what you can bring in C phase, right? You can only bring 2 Panzergrens at a time, for example, where for this unit you could still bring 4 at a time, which is still enough to actually make a difference in a moment on the battlefield. So that's why I like a cheaper thing in C phase when you're playing Maverick. Things are not taking Sappity PP Shaws. We have plenty of CQC, and I just don't think the effect of these is significant enough. Leaders, yeah, I did not force any leaders into this. It's unfortunate, but these all are coming with 1 vet, so it's not like they are leaderless. Veteran, completely without veterancy. More Strelky, not needed. More Avtos, really not needed. Sappity, I mean, if you hate Avtos, bring more Sappity, I suppose. But Sappity, I'm always very on the fence with these guys. But we do have Strelky DP, so we shouldn't be lacking in ways to actually fight at long range. So we don't really need an extra rifle-esque unit that happens to throw a grenade. Strelky Komroti, Tenko Komroti. Honestly, if I was going to take a leader, it'd probably be this one, because having the sniper there. And 5 PP Shaws is nothing to sneeze at. This unit does a whole bunch of things. It supports your infantry nicely, but it also can defend itself if it ends up close range with other infantry units. So yeah, this is actually a solid infantry tab. There's nothing special in terms of the units themselves. You're not getting any extra value or wow, this is great. But it is better than, I would say, very much most of the other Soviet tank divisions. This is a superior infantry tab. Tanks. Obviously the main focus of the deck here. But this tank tab is a bit clunky in that you don't have much in the medium tank department, which is why we're using that Recon Sherman and A phase for our true medium tank. But what we have here is the T-3045 Komroti. I do love these for 90 points. You get an extremely effective unit that absolutely bodies allied medium armor. Sherman's T-3476s. This I've talked about it many times. This unit does really, really well against anything that costs less. It's kind of a weird gap up to this unit, where this unit absolutely destroys those things quite easily. Of course, when you get to against Axis armor, Panzer IVs, Shug 3s, this is a lot less effective because it can be penned relatively consistently by those. But you kind of switch strategies then. Against allied divisions, you can be quite aggressive with your T-3045s because, again, their Shermans, their T-3476s really struggle to actually overcome this unit. When you're against Axis divisions, what you do is you put this more at that 1,750 meter range, and you try to engage the Axis armor at maximum range. And at that range, you have a significant advantage. You have a lot more armor, especially than a Panzer IV, of course, but even a Shug 3. You have a lot more armor, so you're going to bounce a lot more shells. You have more penetration. You have 10 millimeters more penetration than the standard German gun. And you will win most of those combats. So when fighting Axis divisions, you actually want to try to keep this at a longer range and use your basically superior stats for only 10 points more. If you're comparing it to a Shug 3, it's only 10 points more. You are getting a fairly good deal here in terms of performance for the cost. Then we have another card of T-34 1943s here. This is a non-leader. We're double vetting it. Get that nice veterancy up to 8 rounds a minute. Pretty solid. And then we are taking an IS-2 leader here in A phase. I've talked, we've hit up several super heavy tank divisions recently. The IS-2 is actually the most usable of the super heavy tanks. The Axis ones are generally just overcosted, and the fact they're using the 88 that doesn't kill things in one shot makes them shockingly ineffective at actually getting points, actually killing and earning back the points you spend on it. The IS-2 does not suffer from that same problem, right? It lands a hit, the thing dies, and that's a big deal. Now, landing a hit can be challenging, right? We all know the questionable accuracy of Soviet weaponry. Now, of course, if you are playing against this unit, it will probably have near 100% accuracy. But when you are using this unit, at least for me personally, it's generally sitting around at 25% accuracy, and it is pretty darn painful. If you can get, unfortunately with the leader variant here, you cannot increase its veterancy any higher, so it's stuck here. But your B phase 1940 IS-2, if you can get a leader next to it, that is really helpful. B phase, we're taking our single card of T-3476s here. So we do have some medium tanks to spam in B phase, because that's what you're generally doing with the T-4476. You're spamming, which is why I'm not taking the double vet. I want 9. I can very realistically call in 9 of these in B phase on Maverick. We have another card of T-3485 1943s, double vet. So this is making them quite efficient. They are, they have a nice... okay, I was going to say 62% accuracy. It was 50% accuracy, which is pretty high. It's pretty solid. And then a second IS-2. Don't love it, but honestly, I would take it over the T-3485 1944, which only comes with 2. And I've talked many times of why this unit, it's just not very good for its cost and what it kind of, the weird niche it sits in, where you could spend 20 points less, you lose 250 meters of range, and that's it. That's all you lose. You actually gain APCR. That's how big. It's honestly just an upgrade across the board. So yeah, that's why we're not taking these things. I would take Valentine Komorotti. I actually originally had that in here, slotted it out for this T-3045 leader. Honestly, what I would consider doing is taking out this other T-3045 and putting this in instead. Reason being, I could even just put the second T-3045 leader here. I guess that is an option, so I have lots of leaders around. Yeah, I should probably do that. Reason being here, our B phase, you get 4 of them. I mean, you're basically just losing out on the veterancy. No, we'll keep it like that. The double vet does matter. The big issue is you just don't have any leadership in this deck. It's at least the way I have built. I could take something out of here. Maybe the Avto or the Saperty, put in an infantry leader. I'm not that desperate for leadership, but, having a 20-point leader is really nice. We talked about all the other units, why we don't need more of any of those in particular. Support tab. This is actually one of the worst Soviet support tabs. The Soviet divisions tend to have really robust and potent support tabs. This division is not one of those. You get Ognamachiki, Maxims, the 52P, 353, 76 mil, and Studebaker ammo. And that's it. There's doubling of everything else in this tab. And Commander. And like I just mentioned, we aren't really using a ton of leadership. Leadership is not our focus. And I talked in our last video about how leaders are not at their best in Maverick builds or Vanguard builds. You just don't have enough time to accrue the value you're looking for out of the commander. And again, it's not that commanders are useless in aggressive divisions, but generally speaking, you want to be pushing the front line. Commander doesn't really directly help you do that. And you want more time to actually grind out the veterancy value from the commander, which is why we're not taking one. Yeah, there's just it's not bad, but it's also really not good, this support tab. It doesn't do anything extra, and it barely does the basics. Honestly, you don't have an OB25, you don't have any SU 152s or anything like that for 2K range. It just doesn't do very much. It has the basic stuff. You don't even get the 20 mil mortar thing that really makes you strong. Anti-tank tab. This is a pretty phenomenal anti-tank tab. Not a lot of Soviet divisions have a stronger anti-tank tab than this. So we have the M42. You all know I love this thing. Just super cost-effective. Generally will trade up. Hard not to get 35 points of value out of this. It's just a good unit. Then we have 2 cards of ZIS-2. The best standard Soviet AT. There's obviously some unique Soviet AT units, but in terms of standard, what we find across the board, this is as good as it gets. Is this thing insane? No. No, it definitely is not. It only pens 5 more than a 6-pounder at the end of the day. It does get 250 more range, 250 meters more range, and it does get a really high rate of fire. It's not that I dislike this weapon. I actually think it's quite effective mainly because of that rate of fire. It is quite dangerous. Actually, B phase. Oh, oops, clicked the wrong unit. B phase, I'm actually going to vet it. Usually, as y'all know, I'm not usually a big vetter of my AT, but here it gets 2 rounds a minute extra, and that's pretty significant. Also pushes your accuracy up to 57%, which is really nice. The APCR is terrible, like so bad. I would honestly turn this off. First off, the range is abominably short. It's 750 meters shorter, which is really odd. Usually, APCR is 250 meter range, 250 meters shorter than the normal. This one is at 750, which is pretty awful. And it only does 3 damage, which means you need 4 penetrations for this to kill a tank, like a medium or a heavy tank. That's pretty brutal. Like, that's really brutal, honestly. Yeah, you're better at just throwing more rounds at it, because you're firing 12 rounds a minute here. It's just better that way. And then we get 2 cards of M10s. They, of course, do not come with APCR. It's important to note, no APCR in these things. But you can double vet them. They have a hefty availability curve. So you get, like, double vetted A and B phase. You get 9 of them. So this is, like, also like your medium tank. The problem is there's no 50 cal on it. So you don't have that really strong infantry support factor of it. But at double vet, you're firing 11 rounds a minute, which is one of the fastest firing, like, tank-esque units in terms of fire rate. It's pretty nuts. With this gun, you should be able to pretty handily bully any medium tank in the game, and even, threaten some of the heavier tanks. You get this close to a Tiger, it can 100% take it out because Tigers are unfortunately awful. It'll fire 1 time, it'll get a pen, this will fire probably 3 to 4 times in the time it takes the Tiger to fire twice. It's very effective that way. So yeah, it's a really nice unit to have. Kind of makes up for your lack of actual medium tanks in that you can kill most other medium tanks. Things we're not taking, PTRS. It isn't in a good place anymore. We've talked about it many times. There's not a lot of places where this unit is actually super effective, which is good, because back when he used to transport snipe all the time, openers and stuff, it was pretty awful, pretty annoyingly gamey. M42s, Zis 3s, just don't need them in this deck. SU-85, same thing. I just don't feel I need this. There's plenty of other armor to take care of my problems. Anti-air. Solid tab. Nothing super spectacular, nothing super bad. We're taking the 25 mil with the Dushka truck, and then the 37 mil double vet here in B phase. I can't, comments tell me, would you prefer the A phase 37 mil, just like this, or with the Studebaker, whatever, with the Dushka here, or the 25 mil? These days you get 1 less 37 mil, which is not significantly less. It is, I mean, at 80 points, you are looking at, 25 points more? That's not nothing in A phase. It's a little easier to call these in. The reason I take the Dushka truck is, again, it does distract, and, it adds that little bit of extra oomph, which can make the difference. It really can. It can make that difference. So, yeah. We're not taking these other trucks. They're terrible. I'm not saying you should buy these individually, but if they come with it, it is a little bit more AA oomph, and I have a hard time passing that up for 10. I mean, I wish they were 5 points, honestly, but they're 10. So what are you going to do? Arty tab. Pretty bad. There's really not good options here. Overall, we're taking the F-22 because, again, at the end of the day, when you compare this to a mortar, they're extremely similar statistically. The F-22, of course, takes more time to aim, which is that's not a non-factor. It does matter, but I've really fallen out of love. I've really lost love for the regular 82 mil mortar or 81 mil mortar. Doesn't matter what side. Unless it's got radio, I just don't find it to be a very effective unit. This unit does come with radio. If you happen to get your artillery leader up closer, you do actually benefit from that, and that is nice. We're taking the VZ VOD because this is some of our only this is our only infantry leader on the deck, and also our only radio, except for the MCHA. MCHA does have some radio too. And then we are taking the M30-122. This is not for artillery's sake. You can use it as such. It's not like it doesn't artillery, but we're taking it for the 2K HE option here. Get it up to the front lines and use it as an HE 2K weapon. 75 points ain't cheap. It does hurt, but the truth is, at the end of the day, it's only 20-ish, 25 points more than an IG-33 or something. So it's not ineffective in that role. Also, it does come with the heat shells. The heat shells are extremely dangerous. This can absolutely kill any tank in the game quite effectively, but it is only 1,500-meter range, so be aware of that. But if you land a hit, it is killing. It's going to pen almost anything in the game because remember, it's a heat shell, doesn't lose any penetration over range. So it'll kill almost anything except super heavy tanks, and then it does 12 damage, so it's an instant kill. So these are actually extremely dangerous to armor. Got to be careful around them. Things we're not taking, the RD spotter, the gross stupid off map. Honestly, if you're an off mapper, this is technically a very good off map. You get 2 cards of them. You get 4 call-ins. It only costs 40 points. It barely does anything, but it does pin things down a bit. And it can make it quite effective for that. It does nothing else. It will not kill things. It does not do enough damage to kill things. But again, as a unit that you're just looking to pin stuff down, you get 2 of them. They're only 40 points. This is by far the most cost-effective off-map in the game anymore. Talked about the mortars. Why you would take a ZIS 3 with no radio over an F-22 with radio. I mean, I know why, because you get a higher rate of fire. So there is a reason. I mean, I'm even thinking about it because there's so little radio in the deck. But there is the MCHAs, I guess, and stuff. I prefer the potential bonus of the radio. Although the ZIS 3, you can put those VZ-VOD next to them, and then they do get radio. So for argument's sake, you could. Katusha, I hate these things. I just hate them. I'm not putting them on my deck on principle. If you want to, at least call 2 in at a time, so maybe they'll kill something. And the 120 mortar. Air tab. It's pretty lackluster. There's not a lot here that is exciting at all. I'm taking the LA FNN. Ooh, excuse me. Unfortunately, it's not the LA5 with the medium resilience. This thing only has bad resilience. 220 mils, so it's not heavily armed. It's not the worst armed fighter for Soviets especially, but it is not heavily armed. But it does move at a nice 610 kilometers an hour, so it can definitely catch things. Not useless in that respect. And B phase, we're taking the A20C Boston 1,000 kilogram bomb. Reason, weird availability curve, the 1461. So B phase, you get 4 of them. It's hard to only take 1 in A phase. It doesn't really make sense. And obviously B phase, you have way more points. So 1,000 kilogram bomb, though. I mean, big boomies, 440 kilometers an hour, medium resilience. Really solid bomber. It's not very good resilience, so do be careful. It can be shot down. Things we're not taking. Po2. I just don't need. It's too slow, honestly. Like it's too slow, and it dies too easily. The A20 Zukov. This thing. It's again, the ground attack planes just aren't where it's at these days. This one might be okay-ish, but it's still not great. I mean, when you really grind it down to what it actually is, it's 420 mils and 4 machine guns that kind of do something, but it's really the 20 mils obviously that are putting out the damage, like the true damage, like ouchie kill things damage. But it moves too fast. It's just not good. It takes too long to get on target. Just kind of floats around in the air. A20C, this one, the bomb loadout is just horrendous. Like, it's so bad. I don't actually understand why would everyone want to just drop 4 bombs. I don't really fully understand that. P-39 with the rockets. It's an okay rocket plane. It is. It's got 6 of them, so it actually unbothered, unless it actually has a chance of killing stuff. But it's too slow. It's too easy to kill. Yeah, it's not amazing. P-39Q. I'm taking the LA5 over this. Obviously, the P-39 puts out a lot more damage because you get the 50 cals and stuff on it. But I just find the LA5N to be a little bit more maneuverable, and the faster speed does matter. And generally speaking, if I'm using a fighter, I'm trying to catch something. I'm not really trying to head on. So, yeah, that's why. And then the A20C Boston with the 3 500 kilogram bombs just has a much lower availability. Costs 5 points more. Obviously, it does hit a little harder because it's more bomb loadout, but it's also 50 kilometers an hour slower, and that's not a small amount. That's not like a small difference. So that's why I just think the 1,000 kilogram bomb version is more effective. So, 29th Tank Corps. Honestly, this is still one of my favorite Soviet tank divisions. I don't play Soviet tank divisions often, but this definitely falls up there as one of my favorite because I just think it's an interesting mix of units. You actually get a semi-beefy infantry tab with plenty of strokey DP to go around. Get the nice M10s there in the AT tab. Some cool stuff in the recon tab to work with. Overall, it doesn't have any glaring weaknesses, but definitely lacking in the support tab, lacking in the RD tab, lacking in the air tab. you know, these things can definitely hurt. And it's still like, it's not a good infantry division. Like, it's not like the infantry tab is good. It just isn't as bad as most of the others. If you enjoyed this, smash that like button, subscribe. Thank you to my Patreons and YouTube members. It really does help keep the channel going. If you're considering that, make sure to check that out down below. And I hope you all have a fantastic day.